Welcome to the Masterpiece Marriage Show, where couples share their stories about life as an interracial couple. I am your host, Jamie Kaur, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking to Clem and Alfred. Clem is a Filipino from Seattle, and Alfred is a Black man from San Jose, California, and they just celebrated 22 years married. Thanks for joining me today, you guys.
You're welcome.
Sillies.
I love it.
Hey.
Well, hey, let's get right into it. So for those who haven't heard your story or don't know, can you tell us a brief version of how you guys met, what your story is?
We have two different stories. I'll let her go first.
Okay, so I was well, it's not an accident. I actually was seeing his best friend first, but we only went on 2 dates.
Okay.
And we didn't kiss, so that doesn't count. I wasn't seeing him, but he tried. And then he told Alfred I was weird. And so when we finally did meet, he was coming to my gym where I worked at 24 Fitness. And then I would work out at his gym because it's hard to work out where you work. And I would go to his gym, and that's how I saw him. No, actually. We have so
She got the first time she saw me walking down the street.
Okay, the first time I ever seen Alfred was I was leaving a reggae club, crossing the street, and he was leaving a hip hop club, and we crossed in the center of the main, I think it was First Avenue, and a voice inside of me, or my higher self, Holy Spirit, whoever's in my head, said, I'm marrying him. And we never even met. This was in the fall, I think, was while he was home for Thanksgiving break. And I never talked to him, never saw him again. And then months later, I was Jamal, and then Jamal and you came. It was spring because you came back from college already. He moved home from college, and then we met at San Jose Live.
That's her story.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I know. It's weird, but a voice actually, and the funny thing about that voice is I talked back to it. I was like, yeah, right. And, I was young, and I was still like partying and, dating people. So I thought that's weird that I would even be thinking about marriage because it's the farthest thing from my mind. So that was weird. And then we met like 5 months later after that.
My story is I was at work at 24 Fitness, and Jamal and we were in the sales pit, and then I saw her over on the calf raise machine. And I said, oh, look at her, Jamal, she's cute. And he said, don't talk. He did say that. He said, don't talk to her because she's weird. And I said, Jamal, you just ain't got no game. Watch this. I went over there and I started talking to her, asked her for her phone number, and she gave me a pager number. And I don't accept.
You're telling them how old we are right now.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm 49. Doesn't matter. I don't look it. I know it. I'm good. And then after that, we had bumped into each other at San Jose Live, and then that's when we started talking. But she missed all that.
That's because my roommate wanted to date your best friend. And so we went on a kind of double date thing. And I'm like, hey, that's the guy I saw crossing the street, and my head told me I was marrying. Weird.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, 22 years later, it's working.
Well, it works the best it can.
On Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
That's so great. I love that story. Thanks for sharing, you guys.
You're welcome.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so clearly there's differences. There's differences in marriage in general. But then you bring in 2 different races, backgrounds. There are differences. So what have been the biggest challenges for you guys bringing in 2 different cultures, and what has helped you get through those challenges?
I may be darker than she is, but we are more alike than what you would think. So
we're more alike in races,
and culturally,
but not alike in male and female. That's where we get the biggest.
Oh my God.
That's the hardest part. If he was just a woman, it'd be a lot easier. I'm just
2
kidding.
weeks into us dating, she was talking to her mom on the phone. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's speaking Tagalog.
He thought I was Black.
I thought she was Black because she had braids. She just came back from Hawaii. She was
was really dark.
And she had braids, extensions.
No, I had
in
an
her hair.
S curl.
Or something.
Oh, maybe I did have
You had
extensions.
the braids. I know. She had braids.
I had braids. in my hair.
Dementia runs in her family. She'll be fine. I'll be taking care of her 50 years down the road. But
He thought I was black, and he told me the first day I met him is I only date black women.
right?
And I was like, well, I guess I'm out. So I didn't think we were ever going to date.
But I thought she was black, right? So she's talking to her mom. I go, oh, so you're like me. You're Filipino and black. And she goes, no, I'm just Filipino. I'm like, no, I don't date Asian women. She's like, so. And then I start thinking about myself, well, it's too late. I'm in love. So it's just a wrap.
So there's that.
There's that because I'm thinking like she sounds just like my grandmother when she's talking to her mom. I'm like, so you're Filipino and black too? She's like, no, I'm just Filipino. I said, a little bit of black though, right? She said, no. So
none. I'm just brown.
That's how that worked out. So as far as the food, the crazy sarcasm that comes with being Filipino.
So
I mean, like the first time when they see us, if we were talking to you, one of the aunties in the film, they was like,
why are you so skinny?
Yeah.
They would say that to you, not me. They wouldn't say that to me.
They would say the exact opposite about us right now. What happened to you guys?
Why are you so fat?
Yeah. So the food, everything is it's pretty much the same. But as far as husband and wife and then Christian and Muslim, that was a little challenge in the beginning.
That was a challenge.
Not so much now.
Yeah.
Actually, not. I'd like to say not at all.
We don't have that challenge anymore, but it took a while. Yeah. So that one took the longest.
It took about 7-8 years.
About 15, 18.
Well, last week we
double whatever he says because he's very optimistic.
And would you mind sharing a bit about those differences in religion and how you brought those together and how did you make that work?
Well, right off the bat, when because I've been Muslim all my life, and she was like, well, the kids are going to go to a Christian school. I'm like, well, damn, you just going to make up your mind on your own? We can't just sit them to regular school?
Well, women wore the pants in my family, so that was a big, other cultural, it might not be cultural, but a lot of Filipino women are very strong. Assertive.
So I just want to keep the peace, and I just said whatever, because in the end the kids will make up their mind and do what they want. But if they see us fighting, they might be worshiping the cow. Maybe not say cow, a goat. Okay, some people do worship cows.
So yeah, and I agree with him that if there was more like hostility, then it would cause more rift in the family. And I was young. I'm 5 years younger than Alfred, so there's that age difference too. And being really strong-willed, and he's strong-willed too. So I like that he respects which fights to fight and which fights not to fight. So our kids did go to Christian school. They came to church for a long time with me. Alfred went for a little bit until there was a Muslim joke said, and he stopped going. By the pastor. Oh, you were very young. You were still in high school. Yeah, you were really young back then.
Flew over your head.
It was the old, pack highway. So then he stopped coming, and that was kind of difficult because I felt alone a lot, and people looked at me as a single mom in church with 2 little kids, and so I felt a little awkward, and I just didn't like feeling like I was going through the Christian journey by myself. Our first date was actually on Easter, 1997, Easter. And I didn't know he was Muslim because he came to church with me, and our first date was Easter cantata. He would ask me like last minute, what are you doing today? What are you going, and I'm like, the rules. There's this book back in the day called The Rules. So if you're dating, it's called The Rules. And one of the things it said is don't accept last minute dates. And then I'm like, no, I'm busy tonight, but and he would ask me like, when are you available? So I said I was going to church, and he came with me, and that was our first date. So I just assumed he was Christian too.
Just like I assumed you was black.
Those assumptions can get you.
Boy.
Oh boy. So yeah, over time, it took a while though, because it was, especially during those times, it was 9/11. People were villainizing Muslims as being these evil people who are worshiping the wrong God and just, everything was wrong about Muslims. And so it was just very hard, especially like that time in our history, and then just being in church and like our way is the only way, everyone else is wrong. America, go America, we're the best, we're greater than everybody else. And so it was just a hard time to be looking at other people as equal, or having any kind of compassion or empathy, or looking at anybody else as an actual human who is, rightful as we're rightful. It was just so it took a good 15 years.
Coming into it with that mind frame, I mean, just the human decency of respect. And I think I've had to kind of go through that unlearning and relearning process as well. So that's so interesting that you had to come into marriage and learn that.
It was hard. It was really hard because I only was Catholic and then Christian. So it's basically the same. And then I think as a Catholic, I had more respect for lots of different people because we weren't told that other people were wrong or bad. So Catholics were like, your religion is private. It's your own private journey with God, your own private relationship with God. And then Christianity were very vocal and very like, this is the right way, that you're going the wrong way. And so I think that was the most difficult part. And then more recently, it took me 21 years of marriage before I even went to a mosque to visit. And I was going to go by myself. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to the mosque today. They're having a, women's thing. And he was like, where are you going? And I was dressed and ready to go. And he just quickly hopped in the shower and put on clothes. And
I ain't missing that. I ain't missing that. I've been waiting 21 years.
Yeah, because he was coming to church with me for years. I mean, both of our kids were already born, and he had been coming to church for a long time. And so it really helped that one of us was more of the understanding, patient, empathetic, compassionate one, and while the other one, was learning to become one.
Well, we were taught that from the beginning, that and even inside the Quran, it says that your closest ally is going to be a Christian, and we don't, you don't judge, even though you will see some on TV judging that way. That's not what we're taught. We're taught that there's no compulsion in religion. You can't force anyone to go either way. And it even says in the Quran, it's okay for a Muslim man to marry a non-Muslim woman, but not the best thing for a non-Muslim woman to marry, or a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man, because he can abuse the relationship, because he's in most cases bigger and stronger, and he can force you. So it's not recommended, although you can in today's society. You're protected. You have laws in place. Police. It's not like we live out in the bush and he could just clunk you over the head, go find a new one. Not doing that.
Yeah, I got my first Quran a month ago, and I started reading it, and they're very, very similar. I've been reading the Bible all my life, so 43 years of the Bible, and then just started reading the Quran like a month ago. And as far as I've gone, it's so alike. I'm like, he's been trying to tell me for years.
Explain that for years, but it's like there was just this thing about I said, would you just read it? It's not.
Well, I was scared of it. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. What you're not familiar with is scary, because and then it's almost labeled as it's bad and wrong or evil, because this is so unfamiliar, and what you're not familiar with, people get scared of.
That's so true. I'm curious, Alfred, what was that like for you, watching Clem having to learn? I mean, it took years, like you were saying. What was that like for you, being patient and waiting for her respect?
If you read the book, the Quran, and the amount of times the word patience is mentioned in there, I just had to keep going back. Just be patient. It's not in your time. I just remember a story my father told me about the Prophet Muhammad, where the women, there's that big black building is called the Kaaba in Mecca. the women for 9 years, I think it was 9 or 11 years, they would walk around the Kaaba with their, thingies hanging out, and it just bothered him. But he was told to be patient, and then there was, after the amount of time, it stopped. So I just kept telling myself, if he was patient, I have to be patient. I don't. It's on his time, not my time. It's your wife. And in the end, I think the way that and then we're not wrapping it up now, but in the end, if you think about this, love will conquer all. So if you love each other, despite the differences, you just make it work. You'll make it work. You'll be patient. She taught me don't go to sleep angry, which is very, very important. In the Quran, we're not allowed to be angry at anyone or not speak to them for more than 3 days. I don't know if she read that yet, but we can't. It's like actually a huge sin to like if I got
silent treatment for 3 days.
More than 3 days is like the person who steps up and speaks up first is the one who's like that's the biggest thing you could do, is to step up and break the silence. So you do have time to where, and I like that, because sometimes you just need time to reflect and think back. Okay, so what's really going on? You can't always talk it out in the heat of the moment because it's too emotional. But once you get past that, it's preferably is 1. But if you gotta stretch it to 3, but you can't go further than that.
And I was like, no, the Bible says don't let the sun go down on your wrath. But it doesn't mean we have to. It doesn't mean that we have to like mash it out right now. It just means don't go to bed angry, and figure out a way not to be angry. Then you can come back later and create solution or strategy or compromise. But it's, don't go to bed angry. And took us a while to get to that point too.
Yeah. Communication, it's so key, and it takes time for all of us to learn, like with our spouses, specifically if you have different communication styles. So I love that both of your religions have meant so much to you each, and in practicing that, you have learned ways to respect each other. That's so amazing to me.
They're both beautiful faiths. The books are incredible.
So that made it easy for us to be married and not feel so scary that I had to leave him. Because, in church, they will tell you over and over again, do not be unequally yoked. But because he lived such an, honorable, upstanding, kind way, that like, why would I, give up on that? But I think what really helped too is just not being afraid to learn about the other person, or being afraid to, and I think for me it was the fear that maybe I'd find out something that I don't want to know. Maybe I'll find out something that will make me have to leave, or maybe I'll find out something that says, this is it, or this is wrong. And so, or I find out something that he believes is totally, against what I believe, and I would be at a crossroads. So, and I think that happens in a lot of relationships too, is we try to stay, brush everything under the rug, not deal with things when we're meant to live this earth and learn, right? Learn from one another and learn to become better.
It is different for a reason. So we'll learn, I'm kind of quoting from the Quran, but so we'll learn how to get along. He said, if he wanted us, what it says is, if he wanted us to all be the same, he would have created us the same, but he created us different so that we would learn how to get along. That's what this life is, in my opinion. This life is about
learning to love
and learning to love people who are different than you.
And I think that's what gets you higher and higher and higher towards becoming more Christ-like or more like God, is that we learn love, like the actual love, not love if you're Christian, love if you're American, love if you live in my neighborhood and you have my kind of cars and boats and houses, but like actual
or love if I feel like it.
Right.
Right. I don't feel like it anymore.
I don't feel like it right now. You said something that crossed me and I don't agree with it, so I don't love you. But and how many times do we not say the right things? Or I'm sure we don't always are on point with how God would have done things either, but still loves us unconditionally. And that one Bible verse like saved, like so many times I wanted to get a divorce. I'm like, that's it, I'm leaving, I'm done, this marriage is over. And then Holy Spirit puts in my heart, for God so loved the world that he gave. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we're all sinners, we all say the wrong things, we all hate our opposite political party, but then he still loves no matter what, no matter your color, no matter your sex, no matter your sex preferences, you're still loved. And so I thought, well, if he can be mean, or if he says things I don't agree with, and I'm sure I say a lot of things that God doesn't agree with, but I'm still loved, then that verse like saved me from like leaving so many times.
Wow. And I love that if you put a bow on it, I really am taking away that you guys respected each other, and in general, the respect and choosing one another over the morals, over the certain beliefs that may be different. I think in general, we need to learn that we can, I know for growing up, Christian in the church I grew up in, the beliefs were so important. But, at the end of the day, what you're saying, I totally agree, is that you have to choose one another. Not saying you're forsaking your beliefs, not at all. You still want to respect those, but in that, respecting and choosing each other. I'd like to move into kind of family life and in-laws. And could you share, if you don't mind, could you share what the first family reunion or gathering was like, stepping into different cultures? So you said there was a lot of similarities. And can you talk about some of those similarities and or differences?
Um, um, similarities. We have big families on both sides, and similarities. Alfred's mom's pretty Filipino. I mean, she doesn't say she
She don't
does.
pull any punches, put it that
She's
way.
very
She gonna
blunt,
tell you what's on her mind.
straightforward, and
I don't like you.
yes.
She didn't say that to Clem. She
No,
loves Clem because she's Filipino. She's like, here, we got one.
but it's
You speak Tagalog as well, your mom?
My mom understands it, but she didn't really. She doesn't. She can a little bit.
She does a little, but not. She doesn't speak.
You're not gonna say something behind her back, and she's not gonna understand it. She'll understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so and they're older, right? My parents are in their 80s, and Alfred's mom is in her 70s. I think
70s. My dad's 80.
Yeah.
85, I think.
So it's comedy hour basically on both sides, and
a lot of yelling.
A lot of yelling and a lot of comedy.
I speak loud,
And we had to learn because of both of our upbringing being kind of harsh in that manner of like highly critiqued, highly, scrutinized for everything has to be perfect. And, like when Alfred loses weight for a bodybuilding show, oh, you're so skinny. Is he okay? Are you feeding him enough? I'm like, I don't feed my husband. He cooks better than me.
My mom asked her, she was like, are you feeding? I said, Mama, I got to sleep with her tonight. You can't, no, stop that.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing. I think his mom was like the caretaker of their family, where she cooked and cleaned and she did all of that. Where in my family, my mom was she had more of the masculine energy of, taking care of the finances, making sure bills were paid, and making sure that everything ran right, and making sure that I knew to save my money, that I was financially independent. So, which is like, that was another difference between us, is like when he got money, he's like, woof, I have money.
I never seen money before, so I was like.
And being Asian, I'm like, nope, every penny is counted for. I know where everything goes. I'm totally in order. Everything's organized. And I was it's still a learning lesson. That's one thing that we're still, working with each other on, is the upbringings of how we were raised and what our bents are, what we like, and trying to marry them together. And finances is the big one, which I think is for most couples, right? And for him, he grew up with no money. I grew up with no money too, but we were skimpers. Like we skimped and skimped. and reuse. If we can reuse toilet paper, we probably would have
Oh
reused.
man, you know how many underwears are used as dish towels, t-shirts, or drying dishes with t-shirts,
Or my dad's
your dad's underwear.
Like,
It was like see if Fruit of the Loom. Let's wash the dishes. I was, but that might have freaked somebody else out, but not me. It's like that's what we do. That's cloth. Why you gonna throw it away?
Cloth.
You see, right now I'm drinking out of a canning jar. That hasn't changed. It's a glass. It holds water.
And they're cute. They're so in now too.
Well, now they're in, but
Now
back
they're
then,
in.
usually my mom would can out of them. When there was no can, that was a cup.
Wait till margarine jar buckets are
Yeah, the
in
margarine
style
bucket. That was your top. You went to school with a margarine jug,
Yeah.
and you had some pancit and rice. And if you were lucky, you got a piece of lumpia.
Yeah, we didn't have Tupperware, but so those. I think for
We
us,
still called it Tupperware though, but
we did call it Tupperware. So money is a big one. I think we both see someone to mediate through discussions and things that we just can't push through on our own. A professional come in.
we both very like strong-willed. Like we have one thing done one certain way.
And he wants it his way.
And then I just hired her to do my marketing for real estate, and it's like, man, can I?
So we see her separately, and then there's times when she's like, your husband's story is different from your story. Just call me back and let's make an appointment for both of you at the same time. And then we have our couples session and have to mash it out together. But most of our issues, I find, are from our own interpretation of what we think we're seeing or hearing. And so our issues are really our own issues. So a lot of our sessions are separate, but then with the money thing, we had to have a together. I'm out. I'm going to make my own money and then I'm leaving.
You was leaving again last week? She always leaving. I ain't worried about that. You ain't going nowhere.
Oh my gosh. I know she always has to remind me, stop saying that because you're,
It's cold out there. You sure you want to go? It's a little smoky.
You can't breathe.
I'm going to be right here. We're paying for this house. Yeah,
I know. There's nowhere to go.
That's the truth. But I think it's so important to get help. It is so important to get help. We don't know everything. And there are people that are
Black folks don't. Yeah, and they're good. A lot of Black people don't believe in counseling. And I'm like, nah, if you get some help, somebody, a mediator, that's all.
Yeah.
Actually, even in the Quran, it says that, like, if you're arguing, you try to mediate, go do it between each other. And if not, you go to the parents. And if you can't get your parents to mediate, then you got to get somebody else. But sometimes you need a third party. Mm-hmm. That's good.
So I asked one of my cousins, like someone told him that my dad didn't like him because he was Black, and Alfred didn't believe that.
Because he was so nice. So I didn't let that really affect me, because I usually make my judgment as to whether or not I want to be around somebody based on what they do. And he had never did anything wrong. But other than that, the family just took the whole family on both sides. We go to California, we just drove down. We see both sides of the family just very caring and loving. And
I do have to say, I do want to speak on that though. I did ask my cousin, she's older than me, and her kids were also getting involved in interracial relationships and marriages. And she was warning them not to do it. And I asked her, because I'm like, but she's hip and she's progressive and she's not from the old country. Well, I mean, she is, but she moved here so young that why would she tell her kids not to do it? So I confronted her one day, and she said that she's not racist and she loves Black people. She just doesn't want her grandkids to suffer. And she just felt so bad for what Black people have to go through in our country that she didn't want her grandkids to have to be treated or not have the same, same advantages as other people, because she didn't want because she already had, my cousin has other Black grandkids. And so she's like, I just didn't want to have more suffrage, in my family. So I get it. I mean, I don't think my dad disliked Alfred, but I think they knew, because in California, Filipinos were like really segregated against, and um, here, moving to Seattle, I think he was hoping for better. So I don't think it's that they didn't like him, but they just were really sad for what could happen to their offspring or their lineage.
We don't get none of that on our side because we all black. So it's like we live in the way we live. We just got to get through it.
That's incredible. I mean, I love what you said, Alfred, that you very much you base your own opinion on around what you experience, not what you hear from others. That's a really good note.
Yeah, that's actually a huge sin to do that. One is to gossip, and then if somebody's telling me something bad about somebody else, I'm thinking about them. Like, why are you saying this to me? Are you really trying to protect me, or are you trying to just make it to where that relationship doesn't work? I'm going to judge that person based on their actions. And that really came into play when I worked at 24-Hour Fitness. I was kind of the cleanup guy. I would go into clubs and get them back up and running. The first thing when I get there, people would
Not
say,
the janitor, but
I was the manager. And they would say, this person's bad, this person's bad. I would say, hey, I don't need to know all that. I'm going to sit these guys down, talk to them individually. And the one that really sticks out to me the most, there was one guy, he was real quiet. He had this scowl on his face. He looked mean. He turned out to be the nicest guy. The reason why he acted like that, because one of the managers stole his commission. And come to find out, we were best buds. The dude was great, a phenomenal trainer. He just had a bad experience. And it's like, you guys got to take the time to get to know people before you go and put the label on them that they're not good because of X, Y, and Z. You don't know the person. So why would you just assume, oh, that person's bad? You got to get him out of here. And this guy has a life. He's trying to feed his family. I'm not just going to bounce him out of here if I don't know what he's all about. But yeah, as far as like the family, I didn't have any, that was the only one that somebody tried to put that in. And I'm glad this is like in the very beginning too. I go fishing with her dad. I love that dude, man. We hang out all the time.
Okay, so what is something that you have learned about each other since being married that you really love about each other's cultures that, maybe was different than what you grew up with, or that was different about each other?
Alfred is more optimistic. Too far, though. Well, I guess there's no too far. That's why I'm here.
It's not too far. Because right after she say that, then what do I do that doesn't work out in the end? It's just, you got to be optimistic. That's my secret sauce.
It's not bad to be too optimistic, because I think I'm optimistic, but he's a bigger,
funny she says
bigger risk taker, and I'm more calculated.
And I don't like the calculated.
I'm more organic. Like his brother.
I like the organic. You just go. You like, where do you want to go? I want to go that way, and you just figure it out and just.
I don't mind adventure.
Make it work.
I don't mind adventure, in some way, but when it comes to money, I'm more calculated and organized.
I think money is limited. You can make as much as you want.
Unlimited.
You can lose is unlimited. You could make or lose as much as you want. It's there for the taking. Just go get it.
Oh, another thing I like about Alfred a lot is he doesn't care what people think or say about him.
Gives a damn.
He's like, I'm like, oh, Alfred, you shouldn't say that. And he's like, I don't care.
That's their problem. If they have a problem with that, they can't talk to me about it. Hey.
And I was raised with super manners, like always be mindful of what other people think. And I think I was raised too far to that side, to where I became a people pleasing. I would have to change and do things that other people wanted. I put other people's needs before mine. And then that caused, in my own business, that trickled into my business, to where I was even changing everything to fit for others, and I lost myself. And then anxiety attack and depression and all that stuff come along when you people please and you lose your own identity. And so I really like that about Alfred. He keeps his identity. He doesn't try to fit in with everybody. He doesn't try to mold himself or change himself or try to please or do things differently to make other people happy. He's just is who he is. I really admire that about him and made me more free to just be who I am without apologizing about myself to everybody.
What I learned from her is that some of the things I do and say, people do take offense to. You know, that not everybody was raised, not everybody was raised a black Muslim. You have to be real carefree. And you can't take offense to everything. One thing, my limiting belief was that this was probably the best that I could do because I'd never seen
that much money
in my life. And coming from where I came from, you know, beans and rice and hot dogs and
bologna. Oh, well, you guys didn't
wear
eat
the
bologna.
same. Yeah, we did eat bologna, government cheese. We had the government milk. You know, we came up. It was, you know, parents did what they did to get us to where we were, but we had the love in the family. The love was there, and we knew we didn't have a lot, but we didn't think we were. When you think back, like how we barely scraped by, we just, you know, you had the love was there.
And so the limiting belief is that this was the best.
That was
and
the
I'm
best
always
I could
like,
do.
there's more we can accomplish. There's more that we could do. And I think that's where I'm optimistic, is like dreaming bigger, and Alfred's now he's like,
let's go.
He's very uncalculated. Let's just do it and see what happens. I think that's the biggest lesson in marriage that we've come to find out, and that's what's helping us in these now better years, is that we realize that we have these triggers and traumas that trigger us to think a certain way, and we place judgment. Judgment is the biggest thing in any kind of relationship that's not getting along, is we place a judgment based on these triggers that came from traumas. And people don't even realize that there was a trauma. It could be anything from you were sad because you didn't get a toy when you were little, or
I didn't get my Star Wars shirt,
or you didn't get, you know.
So I don't trust what people say, because my mama always told me, I'm gonna get you that Star Wars shirt. It's on layaway. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. She never picked it up. There was no money there, so she never picked it up. So I don't believe what people say. You got to show me.
And I get triggered by people who don't follow through on their word, because my dad made promises to go to Disneyland. All of my issues that I have with people and my husband is I get really triggered by people who don't follow through on their word. And why I'm so about my word. If I'm going to say I'm going to do something, it's done.
And guess what one of my biggest fears is? Chainsaws. I was traumatized by my father. He cut his finger with a chainsaw, and he had to run him to the hospital and blood all over. And this guy was cutting the tree down, and Clem said something. I was like, no, I'm not going out there. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought about it. I have never, ever touched a chainsaw in my entire life because I'm afraid of them.
But he didn't know that was a trigger.
So that's a good example of just trauma.
You don't know that you have trauma.
You don't know that it's there. It's just a trigger.
And it's funny how we bring these things to our marriage and our relationships, not knowing that we have inner issues, because we've lived our life now, we've moved on, we've got degrees, we've made businesses, we're successful. So we don't know that these things are still in our spirit, these seeds. And that's why I think it's helpful to have like a coach or a therapist or energy healer, someone to help you through digging down into your spirit and finding those things so you can heal them and then make marriage a lot better.
I completely agree. That's so good. That's so good. It's so good to have that help and someone who can guide you along walking those things through. When you, like you said, you wouldn't have known that you had that trigger with the chainsaw because you didn't know it was deep down in there. And my husband and I have walked through the same things. It's like, I didn't know I needed to heal from that. But how amazing that we can do it together and walk through that together. And that could be it. But I was going to ask, what is the best resource that you have found that has helped you navigate this marriage and navigate the different cultures, navigate the different upbringings? Would you say it would be the getting help?
Yeah, I think religion is a good start.
Mine is the Quran. Has just given me the tools. It's such an amazing guide. I know there's a lot of fear around it, but it lets you know if you do X, Y, and Z, there's a certain rhythm to life, a natural order. If you do X, Y, and Z, in the long term, things will pan out. You have to be patient and you have to be persistent. Mm-hmm. You have to keep what they say, faith with no works is what?
Dead.
You got to keep, and it's not on your time. It's on God's time. And then when we got the outside help, that just really helped us with digging down deep and understanding why.
Our own self.
Right. Why do I do the things that I do?
Your own person, your own spirit. Because we don't know what's buried in there when we've lived life and tried to bury it so we can survive. If you sat with your traumas, you would go crazy. So, I mean, we've been professionals at pushing it down so we can survive and become the better people that we are. I think for me, it's holding on to the truth of that, love overcomes all, and everything is happening for you, not to you. And if we just stop acting like victims and then get into the pilot seat and figure it out together and not pushing it off, blaming it on other people, then, or the other spouse or your parents who brought you up this way, then you can actually take initiative and make solution.
That's so good. Thanks, you guys. Okay, for the last question, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would leave with other couples also navigating an interracial relationship?
No judging.
I have to second that. Do not judge. People act the way they act for a reason. Don't judge it. If anything,
have compassion, empathy.
There it is. And if you're skilled enough,
communicate.
Help them with discovering what's going on. Offer up help. It's okay. Counseling. This is really running huge through the Black community because we don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't get rid of that. Go get help. You are depressed. You need to get help. Depressed people can't be around depressed people. Get some help.
I think from the judging comes fighting against each other. And that's where marriage gets really hard, is when it's me against you. And so if you're not judging, then it is we. And I think for too many years of our marriage, it was, and still even now our counselor has to say, our coach has to say, you're not fighting against each other. You're supposed to be on the same team. But it doesn't feel like it all the time. And so I think stop judging one another helps you go, okay, what does he see? How is he thinking about this? And then it'll stop being me versus you.
You know what you find out when you do that too? You find out that you are actually on the same page. You're just communicating it differently. We
want the same thing.
You want the same thing.
We just want to do it differently.
You're just communicating it differently.
Yeah.
If you understand the yin and the yang, or if you understand the differences and learn how to put them together, like social media is not my thing. This is her thing. And to have her put all that together and help me with that.
With the marketing.
It makes a perfect marriage as far as the business is concerned. So just don't judge.
Mm-hmm.
Do the best you can. I know it's hard, but don't judge. Try and be patient and compassionate. And
that's a lot. She said one thing.
Okay, golly.
I love it all. It's all good. I'm like, you could keep going because I'm like taking notes mentally. What you said reminds me of, I just heard someone say, you don't wake up in the morning wanting to ruin their day. You wake up in the morning wanting to make their day better. But in that translation, they might not like the way that you're trying to do it. Mm-hmm. And what you said just said that beautifully, because it's so true. We don't mentally want to ruin them. We don't mentally make the choice to have an argument or be on a different page or on a different team than them. But we have to figure out how to get on the same page. And I think we're working through that right now. Yep. And I understand we will for the rest of our lives, but we hit 3 years. And I think we're in the first few years of working and learning how we each communicate and learning, okay, we really are on the same team. So how do we best approach that?
You're so smart talking to people married for a long time.
You are.
Because
we have
that would have been helpful for us.
Non-threatening tools you can use like Zoom. But it's good. It's very good. It's very good. You said 3 years. Boy, y'all just getting started.
Oh my gosh, we were like gonna get divorced every other day at 3
12
years.
to 15, and then you have what we're going through right now is the 21, 22 year is when the kids are gone. You find out like, okay, so my kids are gone. I really don't have to be with you. So right away we bought a place in Mexico. We're planning for the future. Don't
That we can work on together. Work on something
we're
together.
There together. We're excited about living on the beach, playing the sound balls.
I will probably live in the jungle though, and he's gonna be fishing.
And I'm not going to the jungle. I ain't playing with the monkeys. And the tigers and the lions. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'll come visit on Wednesday.
He'll be on the ocean. I'll be in the mountains. It's okay.
But you always, we're working on something. We're always building something together.
Have something that you can.
This whole
work
thing
on
about
together.
the husband and the wife shouldn't work together because you're going to get tired of each other. That is an excuse to go do what those guys do at the other place. Just to run around and be free.
We get that a lot. Like, we've been in business. We own a gym together, and then now I'm supporting him in real estate. And so it's people always say, how do you work with your spouse? That's impossible. That will cause divorce. And I'm thinking, well, isn't marriage like a business? You have to work together like a business. So I don't see it differently.
We're excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so great. I'm excited for your guys' house in Mexico and for the next season and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Exciting.
That's good. We can't wait.
That's exciting.
We can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be fun.
Well, thanks you guys so much for joining today, Clem and Alfred. I appreciate all the wisdom, all the insight, your vulnerability, and I cannot wait for others to hear this.
All right.
Yay,
thank you. We
thank
appreciate it.